I want to talk about the future of small business at another level. We did one show on it, but this is another. And this is Martin Brossman and David Amerland. And I'm so excited to take this to the next level.
Me too. I mean, the first one feels almost like a warm-up. And, almost a month later, we have a lot more data. We're seeing a lot more movement and we're seeing a lot more challenges. So, there's a lot discussed today.
In 2022, small businesses from the global level, I'll share what I see from the small businesses and what do we see? And then we'll get into changes, the social media. We have more political polarization going on online. It's like parallel universes when you watch different news channels at the same time and customers. And it's just such an insane, dynamic, changing world.
It is. And I'm glad you used the word insane. I was thinking crazy just then. So yeah, absolutely. The crazy is still on, but let's try to unpack it, right? Because there's a reason for everything. I mean, it's very, very easy for us from a distance to say, okay, this is crazy, this is insane, it makes no sense. At the end of the day, everything that we see happens because of human activity. Human activity, however insane it may appear to be, has a strict logic. And the moment we begin to analyze and break down this logic, then we begin to understand it. The moment we understand it, we can do things to work with it. So that's what we should hope to tackle today a little bit.
The year is dwindling down. Thinking about the new years over the holidays, what's your advice of how they be prepared for 2022?
Okay, let's start with exactly what they're feeling right now. And it's what you said. Those who weren't meant to survive, the harsh reality is that they haven't. Okay, they've gone. In the vacuum that's been created, new businesses are coming in, new energy, new ideas. So there's a sort of a movement within the market. Everybody feels it, they can't quite articulate it. The ones who have survived are hanging on now. And the question is, okay, hanging on is okay for a while, but it's not a long-term strategy. So what do we do to basically begin to grow and establish ourselves once again so we can have a sense of security in the business? We need to understand that what is happening ahead of us is full of uncertainty. This is the given. So 2022 has a lot of uncertainty, which we need now to manage. And this is how we are going to do it. We know that there's going to be growth. We know that there's going to be movement within the market. We know that there's a lot of pent-up spending in terms of customers, and they will also begin to put money in the market. So that is going to come. So we get past Christmas, January, February, March, we're going to see an increase in spending, in customer sentiment, which is going to be more positive, in businesses doing business. The challenges which they face now in terms of operating costs, which are throttling them back a little bit, are going to start improving because supply chain issues are going to start basically going away. So we don't know exactly the timeline on that, but we hope within the next 6 months from now, we're going to see marked improvement. There is inflation, which economically is a sort of a bit of a problem. We don't yet know how this is going to be managed because some of it is artificial because of supply chain problems. So the moment those supply chain problems go away, we're going to have, or the government is going to have, through interest rates and increase in sort of in borrowing costs to handle that. But that is for the government to solve. So we're not going to solve that. So what are we going to solve? Well, how do we get more business when the business is actually there? And we need to ask ourselves, what do people want? And this is what they want. And we have data on this now. They want increased personalization. Now, if you're a large business, for you, this is a massive challenge. Sure, you can throw automation at it, which costs. Then you need to train your staff to use it, which also costs. And it's not perfect, which is going to cost you because you're going to make mistakes. If you're a small business, however, you're admirably well positioned to actually provide the kind of personalization that makes people want to come back to you because of that, because they feel they know you and they feel you know them. And that's what small businesses should actually be looking at. Now, this is not something new. I mean, in the past, that's what kept small businesses afloat. They knew their local community, they knew their customers almost by name, almost everyone by name. They knew what they wanted. And when they provided a service, they tried to make sure that the service or the product that they provided was suited to the needs of the customer, as opposed to them just making a sale with the largest markup possible. We need to get back to that. And how they do it now is going to be a little bit different because, as you mentioned, they have different outreach tools at their disposal. They have Instagram, they have Facebook, they have Twitter, if they need to use Twitter. They have, if they're using Twitter, of course, they're also using Google search, because whatever comes up on Twitter associated with them comes up on Google search. They have LinkedIn, if they need to use that, depending on what they do. They should be exploring all those avenues. And I understand from a small business perspective, when it comes to digital, there's a learning curve. There is a perception of cost in terms of time involved and effort, and there's an uncertainty on what they'll give back. I totally get that. So I'm not going to say that every small business should have, a social media presence on every platform. You should have a website. I'm not going to say that, right? Because that would be unrealistic. But it would also be unrealistic to suggest that a small business today can hope to thrive if it hasn't got a digital presence. So it needs to have that. And they need to start small. What is the easiest thing they can do? Is it going to be a Facebook page? Is it going to be an Instagram presence? Are they going to need a Twitter account? Do they need to put up YouTube videos, as you mentioned? They need to start with what's easy for them and grow from there.
Yeah, and another piece is just Google Maps listing.
Yes.
Their Google, it accepts. Last time we checked 20-second videos. Well, you can get a lot of fundamental information out in a 20-second video, and many need to get set up, get their little smartphone. I mean, the smartphones now have the capability to do better quality recording, better quality images, everything. So everyone has a smartphone I can find, even in the poorest towns. They may have no internet. They may have limited resources. They may not even have a vehicle, but they've got a smartphone. So that's absolutely, to me, the biggest thing is grab that stuff on Google Maps. And again, it's the humanized, personalized, but also, like you said, the big company has to do all their analytics and data. The smaller company, it needs to rely on its instinct and its gut sense of who is their customer, who they can serve and who they can't serve, and start speaking to them. And this is what we're finding when businesses do this, because the business often will say, I don't want to be out front. I don't want to have my face on it. Okay, well then talk over it. Get a mascot to speak on it. I don't know what you do, but you've got to get that dialed in, personalized, humanized touch and start doing it, because you only learn by doing it. You don't learn by thinking it through. I'll often tell them, get your phone up and make 5 terrible videos. Don't show anyone, just get it done. Think of what you're most afraid of looking like and produce it and get over it. If you're afraid you're going to look too fat, well, take one and your goal is to look as fat as possible. Lean out, get it over, get it out of your bloodstream, and then start moving. And also, again, being committed, which we want to talk about in another show, to your customers and being of service is a tool to get out of your own way.
Yes. And I'm glad you mentioned all this, right? And you mentioned something really vital here about our fear of being in front of the camera, our fear of seeing a reflection from the screen, right? Because we can see ourselves doing something and we think this is terrible. Okay, there are a lot of psychological studies on this. This is like listening to your own voice. When somebody tapes you and they play it back, you think, I don't sound like that, because inside our head, our voice reverberates differently and it sounds completely different to us. Similarly, inside our head, our self-image is different to what we see projected back at us from the screen. And it's always a little bit of a shock. Okay, but here's the thing, right? We've been operating with that voice and that face and that look in the real world without thinking twice about it for a long time. So really, the only problem here is that, sort of slight disconnect when we see what we don't expect to see, because we have this idealized image of ourselves in our head. Okay, we care, but nobody else does. What they care about is, how good are we at our job, how much we can help them, are we good people, or do we do the right thing, etc. These are the things that actually matter to other people, because they also have the same fears and insecurities about how they look and how they sound. So the moment we brush that away, we are left with substance. And the substance is, are you good at providing something that people want? Are you good at providing in the hours that they want? Are you helpful? Are you helping them connect in the gaps in their lives which they need to connect so they can get something done? And if the answer to those things are yes, it really doesn't matter if you have two heads, right? Because you're helping them at their moment of need. So this is the thing to actually keep in mind.
Yeah, and the piece of it is it's a muscle that requires development by doing, is what I have to say. You're not gonna wake up one day and do it, and then someone's gonna criticize you, and you'll get knocked off your horse, and you get back on, and that's how you get unstoppable. And that's the key to understand with this is really doing. It's just like a wonderful author I worked with years ago said, I don't want to look at my Amazon reviews because there's something negative on there. And I said, when I'm done, I want you excited when someone's criticizing you, because then we've crossed that threshold. Now, if you make an honest mistake, you need to clean up or someone misunderstand, that's different. But those criticisms are how we develop that unstoppable ability. Just like, I know something with you is your passion for training. You don't always go for the weight or the pressure that's the easiest. You're going for the next level that's a challenge, but doesn't break you, doesn't damage your muscles or anything else. And this is how we get more effective in the market, by building that up and moving forward on that and identifying it. And it was so exciting because now when we meet many years later, he's got a huge following, bigger than mine on social media in certain areas. And he's going, oh, look at this criticism of me here. That's pretty interesting. And then he always comes from a compassionate perspective, because he's not a commentary where being adversarial is the market and I'm not. That's another tool. And he thinks, okay, what's the way to respond? And he really knows how to respond over it. And this has massively improved his brand, where he's got another book that's now come out. And the publisher that worked with him said, I'm so impressed with your presence online. Well, that occurred by facing all those little confrontations and keep moving.
Yes. I mean, that's a real lesson to learn right there. We only grow if we're challenged. For better or worse, the pandemic is challenging everybody right now. So we all need to grow from that. We all feel the pain. We need to embrace it, as you say, and roll with it so we can grow and develop. And that's the only way forward. I mean, you should, whether you're looking at this from a personal perspective and the uncertainty you feel as a person, which we all feel these days, or as a business, you still have to embrace it and move on so you can actually develop.
The other part of this changing with the supply chain, or potentially increase in the cost of goods, or is for the business to look at what's the next market. Is there a new opening that occurs? The bicycle shop where I got my bicycles doing more repairs and maintenance on bicycles. Okay, well, their biggest challenge is finding a technician that is skilled enough to do it. All right, well, now we know where to go. And that's the key, that a small business actually has the capability of adapting faster than a large chain does.
Yes.
If every McDonald's wants to change their greeting, that's going to take a big plan. But if I'm, a hamburger place and I'm the unique one in Raleigh, I can just have a meeting with the staff. We're going to say happy holidays now, and we change it. So this is taking advantage of the small, just like before, narrow casting as well, letting go of the people you can't serve as well. They aren't bad people. They're just not the ones you can serve as well, and get clear on that. And that art of almost being unattractive to them, and then look at what you see is coming and go, how do we adjust? What are the next needs that are coming down the pike?
Excellent. And small businesses really are also ideally suited to listen very closely to their customers, because they know them better. Now, customers are evolving faster than business. This has always been the case. So businesses really chase the next thing or the next step because of customer needs, even if those needs aren't clearly articulated or clearly perceived, they're still there. So as a business, see what you can actually see and hear from what your customers are actually feeling right now and what they need. The classic example is the bicycle shop you just gave us, where you said, now everybody's doing repairs. Well, by strengthening their repair department, they're serving a need that's evolving. And they're also in a really good position now to actually offer specific deals on repairs, which actually serves even more customer needs, which aren't very perceived right now. So this is a classic example of listening to your customers.
And there's an art studio that I just went to, and they're noticing more people are coming from a specific town. Well, then I said, what are those people spending money on? Because it may not be everything. It might be paintings. It might be jewelry. It might be something else. Then we find out what that is. We can dial that in and maybe have an interview with the artist of the jewelry. And then we could do a targeted ad for that city of that content. Because as I've said a long time, our tolerance for just in-your-face advertising keeps going down each year. We have more ad blindness. I mean, YouTube needs to hire us for consulting because now it's 2 ads and I can't tell you what they are. I'm just waiting. Okay, when's it going to end and where's that little button to get next to it? This is something you and I talked a long time ago. The dumb marketing companies still are in your face pounding them with ads. We're training to ignore that, just like we do ambient noise in the background. And I don't think it's subliminally going in because I can't recall it at all, And this is where the value, the process you do, how do you do it? How do you handle customers? What's your unique offering that you can get out there and talk about? It's like, do we go out of our way? If you come in and you want it, we can ship it to you. All of those aspects are the things that a small business can adapt to, but you have to change your behavior, and humans they'll do anything to change their behavior. My famous quote, David, is the average human would rather have a root canal without painkiller than change one behavior that would profoundly change their life. And it's just the human condition. Accept it. We all, there's like, oh no, I have to now learn TikTok. What, I go through the same thing, and then I laugh at myself and go, okay, there are enough people making money. I need to learn it.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we resist it until we can't, and then we justify it. And then we wonder why we couldn't have justified it earlier. Absolutely.
Right. Well, I think this is important. In technology, anything else you see down the pike, if there are like 3 things or so that from your global perspective that you think businesses should really start over this following time to the end of the year, focus on, put some extra effort and prepare, what would be your advice?
Well, there are 2 things basically which they need to focus on, and every business, irrespective of size, is focusing them right now. The first thing is the closeness to the personalization at every transaction. They need to make the customer feel that they're more than just a number. If they feel that that's all they are, well, they're going to move away because this is really turning people off. Okay, and this is a really big data point coming in now from thousands of studies across different businesses. Google had just put out a report about a week or a week and a half ago, which highlighted the same thing from their perspective of abandonment on website carts because the personalization element wasn't there. So, these are things which, if they work so much on the digital domain where there's no human contact, if they work even more when you actually have a person-to-person contact and you expect to see somebody actually recognizes it's a human being. The reason for this is we've been through almost 2 years of relative isolation. We want contact, we want human warmth. The moment, because we're sensitive to it, the moment we actually get into an environment where somebody treats us like we don't matter, it's a complete turn off. Which leads us now to the next thing, which is engagement. Essentially, every business, irrespective of what it does, looks to engage its customers because what does that create? First, it creates loyalty. Second, it creates the opportunity for upsell where that opportunity exists. And thirdly, and the most basic thing, it leads to more conversions at the transaction point. So basically, you have a customer makes an inquiry and they go ahead and make a purchase. The common denominator in all of those things is engagement. And how we get that engagement is not through advertising, as you said, and it's not through any kind of formalized way where you actually activate pressure points in terms of emotional fear, or fear of missing out, or whatever it is. The classic thing being, this is the last one we have, it may go tomorrow, we need to buy it today, right? So we all see through that now. So engagement means recognizing the customer, valuing what they want, and actually engaging them in a conversation of whatever sort of form that takes, long before they come to the purchase point to make that decision. Large businesses do this through, when they have an online presence, they do this through content creation, and they create a lot of content to drive the conversation, which actually has substance as opposed to just being another form of creating words on the screen. Small businesses are ideally suited to actually do this on a person-to-person basis. So keep in touch with your customers, find out what they want, let them know you're there, not just for them to make purchases from you, but also to just perhaps ask information, check for availability of things in the future, perhaps help them pre-order things if they're thinking about something, depending on what you're working on, the industry you're working in, so that they avoid bottlenecks which are caused by supply chain issues. This kind of approach takes time, takes effort. There's a hidden cost to it, certainly, but it pays off because people feel they're listened to, and more than that, they feel you really care.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fantastic, and I think that's a rule that has a long-term shelf life. You develop it because it also makes it so much more enjoyable for the owner of the business, because you're getting more people that want to work with you, that enjoy working with you. The more you get good at this, the more I've found that people actually enjoy the business, and they find it rewarding, and they go, I'm actually liking my own business more. I'm letting go of the people I'm not able to serve. In fact, I'm referring them to people, that are other in my area, and I'm really attracting and working on the people I truly can serve. Excellent.
That's brilliant.
Well, terrific.
Those two things now will tide any kind of business over well into the middle of 2022. And after that, things will change yet again. So
yet again, and we'll have another video then. This was excellent.
Yeah, by then, yeah.
Make sure to click subscribe and the bell, and look for the text below. We've got links, and David, you have a new book out, so I want you to mention again for people. I highly recommend, a nice gift still that you might be able to get within the holidays.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. And yes, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning this. And we have Intentional: How to Live, Love, Work, and Play Meaningfully. And it is all about being intentional in our actions, in our interactions, in our thinking, in our planning, and in the execution of those thoughts, in order for us to basically clarify what we want out of life, professionally as well as personally, and then achieve it in the way that we want it to come through.
Great book. And if you're concerned about time, available as a digital download, right?
Yeah, too. Absolutely. Yes.
So great. Take care. Thanks, David.
Thank you.